Hi, I'm Elaine Carl and welcome to another very special edition of AIBF Business Talk. This episode was recorded live at the All-Ireland Entrepreneur Summit, where we brought together three remarkable individuals who have competed at the highest levels of sport and have taken their lessons from sport into business and beyond. Olympic silver medalist Annalise Murphy, Irish rugby captain and Olympian Amee-Leigh Costigan, and former tennis pro Conor Niland speak openly about pressure, resilience, leadership, and what success really looks like both on and off their sporting fields. It's honest, insightful, and full of wisdom, so you'll want to take notes. Here's the session. Hope you enjoy it.
Let me introduce him. Conor Niland is born in Birmingham, the Midlands of Britain, grew up in Limerick, and I think it's fair to say that he is the most successful tennis player that Ireland has ever produced. He is he competed. He was ranked number 129 in the world. He competed in the Open Championships in Wimbledon and in Flushing Meadow at the US Open. And in 2024, he published an acclaimed book. It won the William Hill Sports Book of the Year, which is a really competitive heat, I can tell you, called The Racket. An excellent read. I thoroughly recommend it to you. So he is here, but he's now developed a successful career. He did a master's in real estate, and he has now developed a very successful career in real estate in the retail sector. Who's who of set of clients like Tesco with Cushman and Wakefield, who I'm very familiar with, the sort of premier commercial property specialists in the country. So he's on the far side. In the centre, it's a pleasure to welcome back, in terms of I've interviewed her many times, Annalise Murphy. She is from Dublin. She has been an extraordinarily successful sailor. She had heartbreak in the Olympics, and then she won in Rio. And I hope I've got that right. London and Rio, which was the successful one? Rio. So, and unlike Alan Short, who has a crew of people to make him look good, she did this entirely on her own. Since then, she switched sports to cycling, and she's won the National Road Series, significant races, the Des Hanlon Memorial, and so on. She's a fantastic person, and in her commercial career, she is lead head of operations with a company called SportsKey, and they provide all the software management solutions for facilities. So if you have a hotel with a membership club, if you have a local authority with a swimming pool, or whatever the facility would be in terms of handling membership, enrollment, facilities, and all of that, she's a leading player in that. And their goal is to get 20 million people to play sport in 2024, and they achieved that. And their now target is to multiply that by more than 110 million people to play sport by 28. And last, by no means least, nearest to me, is not a has-been, like the first two, I'm joking, okay, is a contemporary. Amee-Leigh Costigan is from a place I've never heard of in the Premier County of Tipperary called Latin. She is a current winger on the Irish international senior rugby team, and they are off this August, September to the World Cup, which has been hosted in the UK, and very, very competitive. She is not only successful as a current rugby star, she's an Olympian. She's recently been a Six Nations captain, leading try scorer as far back as 18-19 in the Women's 7 Series. She's still playing with Clanwilliam RFC, who gave her a start. So she is a role model leader. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our elite sports panel. So now, I'm going to ask you individual questions and then move to some general questions and takeaways for this audience. If I could start with you, Conor, what key lessons have you brought from your sporting career, again a solo sport, to the business of real estate?
Hi, Ivan. Thank you, guys. Great to be here. I do feel like a little bit of an imposter on stage with the two Olympians. I'm looking at Annalise's really cool Olympic tattoo on her ankle, and I'm very jealous. I might get one anyway. Lessons, I guess for me, I'm still transitioning out of being an athlete. I've been doing it 11 years, and I was a tennis player, individual sport, the most individual of sports perhaps, and then to go into a corporate environment with a team and people under you and over you has been a transition for me that I'm still adjusting to. I suppose I'm very self-motivated and self-driven, obviously, and my manager knows to sort of leave me off and let me do my thing. I don't need pep talks, but I guess the lesson for me, and it was the lesson I had in my pro tennis career, was to try and get a little bit better every day, and to take a long-term view of things. I felt like I was a little bit out of my depth when I started in my corporate career, and then after a year I'd get a little bit more comfortable in this situation and built up over time that experience. So I kind of took from my tennis career that you have to build into things. So taking a long-term view, I think, has helped me.
Preparation, would that be something that would overlap? Because I know it's the most successful people, they make it look like the swan, they're just gliding along, but underneath they're pedaling furiously.
Yeah, I think what was difficult for me was I went into the corporate world at 32, and without being a big name, a lot of people I was dealing with, say, didn't know my background, and I'd maybe been in the industry a year and a half, and I was kind of expected because of my age to probably have a certain amount of experience that I didn't have. So that I found quite challenging. And yeah, I guess I'm still adjusting to that. I feel obviously I'm past that imposter syndrome now, but yeah, it was definitely a challenge.
And in terms of metrics, of milestones of success, you know, it's quite straightforward. You get to the semis, you get to the quarterfinals, you get up or down in the rankings, you qualify for tournaments. It's quite transparent, you know, what success looks like. In business, have you found that more difficult, or is it simple, how many transactions you do?
Exactly. I think that's maybe what suited me in this industry. We have a big screen and a big whip every Monday morning, and we know what we're billing this month or what we're not billing this month, and I think that suits me. And I know what a good year looks like in work, and I know what a great year looks like, and so does my boss, and so does the team, and we try and go for that. So it's I suppose it's sort of a sales related role I'm in, and I think that sort of suits me in terms of my background.
And you know, I meet a lot of people in business, and you know, if you strip it all away, they're really motivated by money. They just want more money, they want a better quality of life. Is it being in sport, and like we've amateur sports here, in terms of where does money feature? Did you have to kind of recalibrate, or did you make a career out of it?
I needed to earn some money after being on the tennis tour and spending a lot of money traveling around and not making an awful lot. So I think for me, I'm quite extrinsically motivated, and I guess the book for me was my side project, and I had this dream to be a tennis player and play in the biggest tournaments, and once that finished, I was like, well, what do I do now? I knew work wasn't going to satisfy that. So I kind of threw it into the book, and that was going to be my big dream and my goal, to win at William Hill and get a book published. So I think that satisfied that piece for me. The money thing, I made peace with not making a lot of money in tennis a long time ago, so I'm okay with that. I'm doing all right now, but you know.
Yeah. The book is called The Racket. Would you describe it as a memoir or a motivational manual?
Definitely more of a memoir. It's kind of, I suppose, without getting ahead of myself, I like to see it as kind of a counterpoint to the Andre Agassi autobiography, where he talks about how difficult he finds tennis, and at one point in the book he says how much he hates tennis. I say in the book how much I feel like tennis hates me, as this guy who's trying to get into the biggest tournaments and taking 7-hour taxis in Uzbekistan and luggage bouncing on your lap. So in the spirit of the Entrepreneur Summit, I do have a table full of books outside for sale at the lovely Gwen from Company of Books, so you can find out all for yourself. And
I thoroughly recommend it. It's a fabulous read. Annalise, so it strikes me a bit like tennis. You're out there on your own from sailing. Talk to me about patience and strategy, And you know, obviously the weather conditions would have been a big factor, and resilience. Oh, I didn't expect this, or you know, this wasn't in the plan, or whatever. So issues outside of your control. Have you developed a mentality about that?
Yes, so in sailing, nearly everything is out of your control, particularly the weather. Unfortunately, in an old office job, you can't be given out that, oh yeah, it's raining today and there's a funny cloud up there. That's why I, did a bad job here. But I think the thing about sailing as an individual, it was always, if something went wrong, I was the person to blame. I couldn't blame anyone else, and you had to get used to getting thrown every possible situation and knowing how to deal with it, because there was never a day that was the same. There was always a different situation. Always, what you think would never happen could happen when you're out in the water, with waves, wind, tide, geographical features, ferries, you name it, something would happen. So I think it made me good at adapting to situations, because you have to realize, it's not always going to be fair and you're not always going to get like the good deal, but you still have to deal with the hand you've been given. And generally, really good sailors, they're the ones they're actually not perfect. They're just making less mistakes than everyone else. And when they make a mistake, they're able to go, okay, what can I do now to try and, rectify that?
Now, dealing with a major setback. So you had very high ranking points, world events, European events and so on. And there was huge expectation in the London Olympics, and it just didn't work out. And it was a heartbreak moment. Coming back then 4 years later in Rio, how did you sort of deal with, am I not as good as I thought, or did I, on the really big platform, did I blow it? How did you deal with the major setback?
So London was, I guess, a huge setback for me, because I went into it, I was young, I was 22, and I had loads of ability.
By the way, you're still young, I can tell you.
I'm not that young anymore, but loads of ability, loads of confidence. I was, it was exciting as well. Like there was no pressure. I was having a great crack. I was at my first Olympics. I was walking beside Usain Bolt in the opening ceremony. I was living the dream. And I went in to start racing, and sailing, it's very long. It's like golf, but longer. You race over 6 days and you do 2 races a day. And the idea is that the best sailor over the range of conditions is going to win, rather than someone who's only good on one day in a certain type of condition. But I went out on the first day and I won the first 2 races, and then I went out on the second day and I won the next 2 races. And that doesn't really happen in sailing. It's a bit like going out and eagling every hole if you're playing golf. But then suddenly, the media were interested, because no one knows anything about sailing, and suddenly it's like, well, what's this sport? We didn't know we were any good at that. And suddenly,
happy to jump on the bandwagon.
And I crumbled under all of the pressure, which I hadn't felt until that moment when I suddenly realised I had something to lose. And the 4 years between London and Rio, like, my big goal was to try and not be afraid of losing something, because you have to see they're amazing opportunities you have. When you get to these huge events like Olympic Games or World Championships, if you put yourself in a good position, it's an amazing opportunity you have to go and try and capture something. While in London, I saw it as, it was nearly a negative. I was like, I can lose all of this. And going into Rio, I had a very different attitude. I was like, I wasn't worried about losing. I actually used to joke, I was like, I hope I don't come last here. But when I was racing and everything was going well and I was in a medal position, I knew there's no point in being afraid of losing it, because then you are going to probably lose it. And
you see that quite a lot with different sport players, that they go through these. I remember Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen. They go through this really young, fearless stage that they just. And then when they stop to think about it, it's not so easy. Is that about managing expectations? Because it is about the top 2 inches, isn't it?
It is. I think I guess everyone, when people really want something, you do start to fear losing it. I think it's a human nature,
because sometimes jeopardy drives you.
It can drive you to a point, and then I always think I was good at sailing, but I wasn't the best. And I would see some of my competitors that were able to win again and again, and I was like, they just must have this extra drive, this will to win. It's probably a bit like in tennis, how do these guys win again and again and again? It's like, they have something different to people that can occasionally win.
Did you want to come in on that?
Well, it's something that fascinates me is that the very top tennis players, the top Serena Williams, Roger Federer, how good they are at closing a lead. And you see, even if you go down to the guys who are 50, 60 in the world in tennis, they're letting leads go in final sets all the time, but the top players are just unbelievable front runners and unbelievable closers. Something I've always...
Yeah, no, I noticed that. Like, you get a tiebreaker and there is this pivotal point in the match and they just get in this zone that they are super special. Just on the same question for Sports Key, the transition from what you learned in sport to what you're doing today in business?
Yeah, it's been brilliant, I guess, being in a company that is sport focused. Like, we're, it's to manage sports facilities, it's to get people out, pitches that you might never been able to use, you now can book on Sportskey and go and use them. So it's enjoyable being in a company that it is, in some way my passion. I would say getting to go sailing every day, I was living the dream. Like, I loved it. I'll always look back on my 20s being the best times of my life, but it's also enjoyable to be in kind of a corporate environment with the team and where you're working to try and grow.
And you're now into cycling. You're successful at cycling. Tell me about that.
Cycling was a bit of a hobby. I'd always been cycling for my fitness training, and I started doing a little bit of racing after I finished sailing, just in Ireland.
What are we talking about, 50 kilometres or what are we...
We're like 100,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fast though, you go fast.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's over with quickly. But yeah, I think I've loved being able to take up a new sport where there's no pressure and it's purely my hobby, and my husband's into it as well. So the two of us, that's how we spend our time together, is cycling up the Dublin mountains.
Okay, sounds very romantic. Okay. Up the Dublin mountains, right? Okay, right. Amee-Leigh, all the way from Tipperary. So tell us a little bit about the current state of women's rugby, the World Cup coming up, your own career as a winger. Just talk us a little bit about where we're at, because it seems to me there was this really great surge for women's rugby and it's somewhat regressed in terms of success. Where are we at right now?
Yeah, obviously you saw the Grand Slam back in 2013, which turned a lot of eyes to, I suppose, everyone in Ireland to be like, oh gosh, this Irish 15s team can win Grand Slams. And then a lot of retirees as such, like it happens in all types of sport. And then the development of the game just grew and grew and grew. And obviously it was a bit slower in Ireland because not that many girls are actually playing rugby. Well, back in the day there wasn't. Compared to what it is now, like you see so many underage girls, teams playing, huge amount of blitzes that go on. But it's really grown, and especially the past 18 months, I think there's been an absolute evolution of this team. They qualified for the World Cup in the last Six Nations, which no one, I'd say, would have put any money on us to do that, which was great because it was the route one basically that you always want to take to these competitions. You don't want to be going playing qualifiers or reportages. And then in September we headed to WXV1, which is obviously playing top tier nations. The likes of, we played New Zealand, we played Canada, and they're obviously between 1 and 4 in the world, and we got to compete against them, and we had great success over there beating the Black Ferns. And like Conor said, it was about how we could chase the lead. We didn't always have the lead in the game, but it was how we stayed in control of the game and how we kept our foot on the throttle and didn't let it off. But yeah, the women's game has grown massively. I was part of the sevens team that made it to Paris Games last year, and the first women's rugby team to go there. So it's obviously a very special time for me to be able to be part of such amazing.
And what I find interesting, different to Annalise and Conor, is, and I've listened to some really good high performance coaches talk, the sort of characteristics of a successful team in terms of motivation, trust in each other. Talk to us a little bit about, building a great team ethic.
Yeah, obviously businesses work in teams as well, and there's all different types of personalities and dynamics that go on in teams, and I think it's how you become aligned, and I think that's being completely honest and also being quite vulnerable with your group and your team, and like when you're at your lowest of days, they're the people who can pick you up. Like if you're struggling in a role, or if you're struggling, for me as a winger, to get the right play or to get the right move or to execute it, like there is no harm in asking someone to help you. And I think that's the culture that we have at the moment, which is huge for us to be able to grow as people, but also as rugby players, because it's not always easy to show your vulnerability by saying, I'm not good enough at this, but can you help me do this? And I think it even brings out more in that person that you ask, that they have huge respect for you, because you're obviously, for me, if I was to ask someone, I'm of a huge experience in this team, like I'm there 11, 12 years, but if I was to ask someone, they would almost be taken back by it. But for me, that's so normal, because I'm not the best player in the world. I want to be, but at the end of the day, I want to be helped by my teammates.
What about sports accountability? Because I'm a great Leinster fan, but in 3 years they've won no trophy. And how does a team that has a lot of talent on any given day can beat anyone, but yet has won no trophy, and you could say underperformed? How do sports teams at the highest elite level do accountability? You know, in business, there is no hiding place. The accounts say we won, we lost money, we lost market share, we lost a customer, you know, or we grew our business, or we're more profitable. How do teams do accountability to say, actually the number 10, you dropped the ball?
Yeah, like there's a huge amount of accountability in sport. Like we go in on a Monday morning and everything, our whole review of a game is put up, and you could be part of 5 clips or you could be part of no clips, and you have to take that ownership and understand that that was your error, or so be it, it was actually something that you did really great. But as a Munster fan, it actually hurts to see that Leinster actually haven't won a trophy, and the amount of talent they have. It's probably because I'm so close to actually, I know the players and I know what they're going through, and I can see that, because like obviously they're a huge talented group, they have it, but for some reason it's not clicking with them at the moment, and yeah, I just think it's that part of being able to review and be accountable and accept, like if you've made the error, like you put your hand up and do it. But that's not always easy, like it really isn't, and that comes with experience. It comes with a lot of self-reflection. Like you really have to look deep at yourself, as in like, I have to accept that I've made this error. Like let's say I knock on the ball a metre off the try line and that's a try. Like I just have to accept it, like it's what I've done. I have to be resilient enough to bounce back from it, because I might have another 72 minutes to play, or I might have 1 minute, and I might only have one more contribution to give. So you really just have to bounce back from those sort of things.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, so just, is there any specific moment in your careers where you considered giving up, that this was the darkest, deepest, situation that you faced? Conor?
Probably that taxi in Uzbekistan didn't feel great. I think I thought about giving up every week after I lost, to be honest. I suppose in tennis, you might have a good year and win 3 of the 25 events you play in. So you are having to deal with loss a lot. But yeah.
And what gave you the resilience to go on is the next part of the same question.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that I retired in April 2012, having played Wimbledon and US Open 2011. So I think they were the carrots for me to get to that promised land and play Grand Slam tennis and be able to always tell people when I finished I'd played Wimbledon. That was my kind of carrot. And once that was achieved, I did find it hard to go back to the Challenger Tour.
So having a specific goal is very important.
For me, that works, yeah. It was, again, going back to the book and all that, having a specific goal and something specific to work towards is kind of how I find my motivation.
So in business, maybe making it up as you go along mightn't be the best thing, but we want to get to 100 million, or we want to get to a particular 10 million of profit, or whatever it might be. Annalise, on that question, any particular, what did you reach into that gave you the resilience from your darkest moment?
Oh, I think every athlete has these moments where they question why they're doing it. It's particularly when you do badly at an event or a tournament or whatever it is. Like it's just like, it's heartbreaking, and you feel embarrassed because there's so many people supporting you. There's you put your life on hold, and then
maybe some sponsors put a
yeah,
fortune
exactly,
into
and
this.
that's another thing. Once, I didn't have any sponsors when I was younger, and there wasn't really any pressure. But once I had a few sponsors, there was huge pressure to do well for them, because I felt like they'd put money on a horse.
They don't want to back a loser.
Yeah, they were like, when I do badly, I'd be like, they've just backed a dud. So it's those were the moments, and I'd think I'd come home and I'd have a cry and I'd talk about how I was going to quit. But
did you find like sometimes people have mentors, whether they be in sport or family or teachers or parents? Did you ever have that? Did you experience that, Amee-Leigh, whereby someone else has given you that resilience?
Yeah, I have a personal mentor myself who helps me on pitch and off pitch.
Professional?
Yeah, she is. And that's been really helpful towards the past couple of years, because we tried to qualify for 2 Olympics, so London and Rio, which we missed out on. And then, all teams, the pressure starts coming. But she was able to just direct me in the right path, and as a group then.
So the value of having someone who is actually qualified to do that. Any particular weekly habits, quickly, that you'd say are good habits to have or bad habits to have that sustain you?
Not really,
No, routine is a good answer. Annalise, any habits?
It's, I'd say, I try get up every morning, have breakfast. I try to have a good attitude for everything, even things that I don't want to do. I try to go. Yeah.
They say always first thing you should eat your frog. You'll have a list of things. And there's one particular thing you don't want to do. You're that nasty person or that thing you're not good at. Eat your worst frog first thing in the day.
That's actually my boss's favorite book. It was the first thing he gave me when I joined the company. Eat the frog. Yeah. So it's now I sometimes slag him about it, because I'm like, I don't feel like eating the frog today. But it's there is something to be said about when you have something in work that is going to be difficult and challenging, to actually face it head on. Because if you just keep on putting it off, it's worse, because it's eating away at you, because you are still thinking about it, even though you're trying to pretend you're not thinking about it. And the worst case is you get into it and you realize it's difficult, and then ask for help.
Good habits?
For me personally, I'm still so active in my sporting career, but I think around balance, because training is so intense, meetings are so intense. I'm constantly switched on when I'm in the HBC over in Abbottstown. When I leave Abbottstown, I really try and get a switch off. I try and not think about rugby for a couple of hours, whether it is just thrown on a podcast or watching some trash TV.
To have downtime in your head.
That's for me.
Yeah, okay. 3 excellent habits there. So finally, and it can be in any direction you like, either the best piece of advice you ever got. This is an entrepreneurial audience. They're focused on the bottom line and performance in their business. What's the best takeaway that you'd like to give them, Conor?
Yeah, for me, I said it already, get a little bit better every day, and don't try and get 2 days better in one day. So try and keep improving, but don't overreach. You can't be hitting A+ in every part of your life. So I try to focus on certain things and let other things take a back seat. So try and get a little bit better every day, but not 2 days better in one day.
So incrementalism, would that be a good way to sum it up?
Yeah, as I said earlier, again, I take a long-term view on things.
Yeah.
So if I feel like I have a book in me, I might have it 3 years, 4 years down the line, not try and crank it out and just get it done. So try and get things done right.
Annalise, your best advice?
I think it's important to set, big goals for yourself. If you want to achieve things and get to the top of whatever it is, you need to set out goals that seem very difficult. If you just set out an easy task, you're going to
aim high. Aim high.
And I think it's. And I'm trying to do now in my new life, and I see it. My younger brother, he's in venture capital, and he's managed to raise huge amounts of money, and it's purely because he just believes that he can do it. It's not through, it's just pure belief that he believes that he can do it, and it's kind of cool to see that, whatever kind of career you end up in.
One of the best bits of advice I got is that you will never achieve what you aspire to. You will achieve what you expect to do, and to raise your own law of expectations. Finally,
Yeah, so for me, I want to be a great rugby player, but I want to be an even greater person. And I always come back to that and it's for everyone here as well, like how you can impact someone's day-to-day life. Like the world is such a difficult place at the moment, and people are going through all sorts of things, but it's how I can influence my teammates around me, or how I could influence just some young rugby fan if I meet them after a match. That's mostly around what I would give advice. That
the
you
kind
can
of rounded, not to be mono-focused and to be a decent person. Yeah. Honesty, integrity, and all that good stuff. And if you can fake sincerity, you have it made, I can tell you. All right, they've been a wonderful audience. Conor, Annalise, and Amee-Leigh, thank you very much indeed. Okay.